Alrighty guys, welcome to the Tier 3 Comprehensive Placement Guide. So what I've noticed is the first one did pretty well, the second one not so much. So I thought I might spice it up a little bit with the Tier 3s, and I'll order them in terms of the ones that I think are most useful to least useful. So this is going to be primarily focused on early game once again, but it isn't actually too relevant here with the Tier 3s since they order up pretty nicely. Throughout the whole game, the ones that are best in all of the game are generally the ones that are best early game. Once again, the ones that are completely unplayable by themselves, like Harpy, we're just going to exclude. It's not worth talking about. Alrighty, starting from the very bottom of the list, we have Mr. Watcher. Watcher is not good. Just straight up, it's bad. But it is very, very playable. So, level 1, you're going to want to start 3 Watchers. You do have the option to instead start Violet, but there's really no upside to this, right? It's worse versus warriors, and even if you start with 1 Violet, you're not going to get a second Violet on level 2, right? Like, you're not don't stay 1-0 with Violet for level 2, don't do it. So yeah, there's like actually just no upside to starting Violet. Well, the only theoretical upside would be is if you plan to mix with a 1 Violet setup only, but at that point, whatever you're mixing with, I'm sure it's better than Violet. So, 3 Watchers on level 1, Violet level 2, Violet level 3. You're also going to want a tier 1 in front. The reason you want the tier 1 in front is these things get absolutely fucking railed by Blood Orc. It's not fair. So yeah, gotta really strongly suggest that tier 1 blocker, because if a fast Blood Orc gets on a Violet, if it moves like slightly in front or stupidly, then you can leak super hard on 3. So like this should improve your consistency. This easily holds level 4, level 5 we get another Violet. This is like, it's dicey level 6, with good focus you can hold. Otherwise, just like pop in another tier 1. Level 8, this unit, it's bad because it doesn't do much damage and the damage is all spread, but it does have 850 HP medium armor. So if you've got like decent units that'll either stay behind or like share some damage with the Violet, it can do something for you. Level 9, it's squishy but does some damage. Yeah, there's really not much to say about this. I very rarely use it. Very rarely mix it in. Falls off completely, like, off a cliff after 10, but after 5, honestly. So yeah, I'd stay away from this unit, but it's, at least it's quite simple to play. It just doesn't really do anything good for you. The only level it's actually, like, quote-unquote strong is level 4. But it's not even that strong on level 4, because Dark Troll is a common send, like Dark Troll Blood Orc are the meta sends rather than Commander Bows. And then yeah, it's just like not good on any other level really. It has no good mix that I'm aware of, so yeah, I would stay away from this unit, but hey, it's an option. It's nice to know how to play these options just in case. But this is why I rate Watcher or Violet as the worst playable tier 3. And on to the next one. Alrighty, up next we've got Gateguard / Raider. We're going to treat these as the same unit, even though they're not actually exactly the same unit. I think Raider's better off. One of them's slightly better, I don't fucking know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So for level 1, I like to do a 3-0 start with just double Gateguard. You can go for a warrior cover with adding like tier 1 and tier 2, or adding something and being like 230 to 250 value. I generally don't, because I think that if you're playing with like lots of these, you're either like a risky sort of YOLO or just a suicide YOLO, in which case I generally don't really want to take feed. But it's like, it is an option that you can do if you choose. Level 2, so normally I start with this 3-0 and go level 2. And then level 3, there are 2 ways you can do it. You can go like 5, whoops. You can go like 5 Gateguards if you want, which will hold 4. I normally like just pushing more, getting a 3rd Gateguard on level 2, and then pushing like 3-1. Right, and going 360 value of Gateguard. It's the same theory as level 1, right? As long as my team's okay, I don't want to take feed if I'm playing this unit, so I just try and 4 risk. Worth saying, I think this unit is better than Watcher, because I think it's like, just generally, like, you look at the stats and it's like, hey, it's kind of tanky, it has normal damage and heavy armor, which is really fucking good on the first 4 levels, even though this unit's not great on 4. It has 2 increments because of the main body and the summon, which makes it like quite mixable. It's relatively tanky for its cost. It can like distract Blood Orcs relatively well with the summon. Like, this unit is actually just not bad, which is why I rate it over Watcher, even though Watcher is like more playable by itself. So by itself, you do, 360 or 450, 180 for 1, 270 for 2, 360 or 450 for 3, 450 for 4, and then whatever the fuck for 5, like something else for 5. I would generally try and stay at 3 Gateguards. I would really generally try and stay at 3 Gateguards and then build something else for like level 3, 4, 5. And that way you just have the Gateguards behaving very similarly to, I forget which Titu it was, one of the Titus, behaving similarly to Corrupted Ent with the Titus and just springboarding you out of the first like 3 or 4 levels by being a good unit on the first 3 or 4 levels. And you can build something that maybe will help you out on level 5, but kind of sucks for those first 3 or 4 levels, maybe Obliteration Dragon, for example. Mix that in, it helps you out on 5, you got those to help you out in the first few levels. Anyway, really, really simple unit. Obviously you can build more with them if you decide to, like early game, and actually be a really good early game cover. It's just, I think that generally doesn't really help your team. But yeah, that's Gateguard Raider. They play exactly the same. It's a nice unit to have like 1 to 2 of with other units that you start, and they can just help you through the early game really well. But besides that, I wouldn't prioritize them highly. But I do prefer them to Watcher because I think they're a lot more flexible. And like, for example, I use Gateguard way more often than I use Watcher, just because I stay away from Watcher because I think it's a crap unit. And I regularly use Gateguard to help me out in the early game if I have like something else that's a better unit and I just want to, safeguard it on level, 2, 3, 4. And it's like, hey, put a Gateguard in there. She ain't bad, tanky, double increments. The double increments is actually really nice. Fairly tanky, does like okay damage in the early. And then falls off a cliff after 5, but that's alright. So yeah, this is Gateguard. It's not good, but it is not, well, Gateguard Raider. It's not good, but it's not the worst tier 3, I don't reckon. So, give it a go. If you've got better units to start with and then you pop one down in the early game, it'll help you out. It does good work for you. Anyway, cheers, and on to the next one. Alrighty, next on the list we have Mr. Crab. So, I like Mr. Crab, to be honest. I really, really like Mr. Crab. I think everyone likes Mr. Crab just because he enables a lot of silly things and a lot of fun things. Like Mr. Crab with Tok or Hydra gives you really nice push and keeps you safe in the early game. Crab with Lod is quite nice. It's a really convenient way to not leak 6 and get a Hades. You can do like Crab into Guardian of Death or AOD, things like that, and it's like fun. Good is probably stretching it, but it's fun. But anyway, we'll talk about Crab just by itself. So, it's worth saying that, like, Crab has really high highs, but also, like, really low lows, because just as a unit, like, you're paying 85 gold for this. Like, compare this to a fucking Gateguard. Like, Gateguard has more HP, does more damage, has better increments. Like, Gateguard as a unit is so much better than Crab. It's just Crab. You don't feel bad about clicking this button because of the ability. Anyway, when playing Crab, I would start 2 Crabs on level 1. And I'll get, if you're playing like just Crab, the full Suicide Crab setup. It's like 4 crabs, level 2, because crab is really bad level 2. And then you just get like more crabs on 3. You know, probably this for 3 with 2-0. And then this will do you on 4, right? Then the convenient thing about crab, in the old map, you'd hold level 4 and you go like, bye bye. And you get a lot of gold back. Since that's not really doable anymore, like that kind of niche suicide for this unit is dropped like very, very much in relevance. So it's pretty much only useful as an ad, and as I said, like when it's good as an ad in some roles, like it's really, really good. With a lot of units, it's just like pretty useless, and you won't really build it ever. Just be like, wow, could have had like anything else and it would have been better. But yeah, so 2 crabs level 1. Then you need to build up more level 2, build more level 3. Like if you're playing just crab, then you need 500, and then you need to be 2-0 for level 2 and 3. There's just no way around it. The unit's quite bad, so 2-0 is you're locked on 2-0. And then yeah, there's not much to say about it. Like by itself, it's obviously not very good. It's down quite low on the list. And it's also down quite low on the list because it's just not very consistent in your roles. It's a good unit. Like when it's a good unit and you can use it, like it's very, very helpful because it just turns something that might have like not very much push into something that has really solid push. But when it's not good, it's just like actually like really bad to use, right? Like if you're just playing with weak units, like weak low cost units, and you have crab, it's like, well, this doesn't fucking help, right? Because it's just a bad unit for 85 gold. Like purely in terms of stats, it's bad. Just the upside is that it's not dead value because it's like 9 gold or however much it is. Yeah, you lose 9 gold to have this for however many levels, which, you know, has its upside. Yeah, that's crab. There's not like a lot to say about it. Purely in terms of placement, as with all these melee units we've had so far, it's just going to be next to each other for damage share, and once you get like more than 5, you start building back behind. What you don't want to do is like build something here, because that'll generally like clog the creeps to the wall and then make the outside ones tank nothing. Yeah, so that is Mr. Crab. There's not a whole lot to say about it. Yeah, like the unit, it's just very, very inconsistent in the profit modes we play, so, you know, it's doable. If you always played it with Marine, it would be fucking awesome, because you'd play Sea Giant Crab every game. Sea Giant Crab, Egg Sack, and Mermaid every game, and be, like, pretty happy about things, but we don't play AP, thank God. My God. Imagine playing AP in LoL. Just be like 4 fucking Elite Archers every game. Probably not, but it'd be pretty silly. Anyway, that's Crab. Cheers for watching. Catch yous in the next one. Okay, next up, we've got one of my favourite units. Rate this. Over Crab, but behind Phantom. So obviously Crab having its like high highs means it's a bit hard to rate in general, but I'd say I like it a bit less than this unit overall. So we've got the guard. Level 1, you're going to want 1 guard, right? You can do 3 footmen and it's better level 1, but it leaves you a bit high and dry level 3. Makes the rest of your setup awkward. So I would say you go 1 guard, level 1, level 2, footman, level 3, guard. For the standard, right? This holds 4. You can do 3 guards, level 5, but it's 720 value, so you basically always stop at 2 guards, and then something else for 5. Because guard has its defendability, basically means it's pretty damn tanky on 4 and 5, which is nice. So talking a bit more about this unit, it doesn't one-shot level 3 always, and it never one-shots level 3 through a Furb. With the medium armor, you got to be a little bit scared. Placement-wise, we want everything in a line, but if you end up mixing guard and footman past this point, we'll just compare the stats. So footman has, for 80 gold, 385 HP, but 55 to 59 damage. A bit slower attack speed than guard, but still. Footman is very, very damage oriented, right? It's got high damage, low HP. Guard has 1150 HP, right? So like 4 times the HP-ish. But it only has like 7 more damage, right? Really not much more damage. So Guard is tanky, but low DPS. Footman is higher DPS for the gold cost, but squishy as all hell. Yeah, so placement with guards, you're going to want them in a line. With Footman, you're going to want them at least a little bit behind, make sure they don't get sniped. In general, I would say the actual good way to play this unit is if you can stick to 1 guard. So guard, it's like fine on 1, solid on 2, fine on 3, then it's like good as a frontline on 4 and 5. So if you've got, like, I'd say the best way to use guard is 1 guard and then mix, right? You can actually be pretty successful with 1 guard in front like this. The reason you want to put it in front, I'll show you. Because when it uses its defend ability, exactly the same as in melee, it's going to use the defend ability. We're going to watch it move. As soon as it takes a hit, it slows right down, foot speed wise, right? So you got to make sure it's far enough in front that it doesn't go into its like shield form. So you just see the difference. Well, it doesn't actually show me now, never mind, because they're not considered as having movement speed in the build phase. Anyway, you don't want it to move so slowly on range levels 4 and 8 that any other melee units you might have that might be squishier run in front and then get sniped, right? That's not what you want, so you got to make sure the guard is far enough in front to prevent that. So the placement's a little bit finicky. In general, this unit's not great, and I'd never play it by itself on free, but it can be an okay add for some units if you don't have much else, and it can actually be quite a nice just unit to have in your mix, just because it's a pretty beefy front line. So yeah, the only like placement thing to really be aware of is like multiple guards share damage. Footmen go behind because they're squishy but high damage. And make sure that your guard is far enough in front of other melee units that the guard actually keeps tanking on range levels 4 and 8 while its ability is active. Just thinking, is there a ranged normal level? No. Maybe 28 is the first level where it moves normally. First range level it moves normally. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, that is guard. Yeah. Not too bad in between Crab and Phantom. And yeah, Cashiers in the next tier 3. Alright, next up, I rate this very, very slightly over Crab, partly because of the egg sack setup. We have the Phantom. So Phantom, it's really bad early without egg sack because it just doesn't offer you much push, doesn't offer you much overbuild, and has some really bad levels. But if you get in a good situation for this unit, it can be really, really nice. So level 1, you got 2 options. You can be 2-0, double Phantom, and then tell your team, please can we send Verb 2 before income? Which is not so good, because you force your team to do something that may not be good. If you don't have something that's like slow enough for Verb before income, then you might even have to send like a fucking whelp or a dino or something, which is really like just not good. It's really not good. So my recommendation, honestly, most of the time if you're playing this unit without any mix, would be to stay 1-0 and just get a Hellraiser, and then you can build a tier 1 as well. So depending what tier 1 it is, like here, Spectre, I'd just put it here. And you get the Hellraiser, because the Hellraiser, since it one-shots level 1, it's actually good versus warriors. Then for level 2 you can just push, and Hellraiser with like tier 1 will hold. If you really feel like you need to cover, you can stay 1-0 and build some more, but I normally wouldn't. Normally just push 2-0 and then grab double Phantom for 3. And you end up like, this is a 25 gold tier 1, but you know, if you have a cheaper tier 1, which most of the time you will, You can do this with 2-0, or you can sell the tier 1 and it's like not the end of the world. But generally this is what you end up on level 3, with or without a tier 1, is 1 Hellraiser on the wall and then 2 Phantoms. So Hellraiser Phantom are really high DPS, but they're very low, like they're low HP and light armor. So they're very inconsistent focus-wise, particularly on level 4. If the Hellraiser gets like primarily focused and sniped down, like you can see is happening here, it's complete RNG. Like if this gets sniped down quickly, then it's seriously painful, because once the Hellraiser dies, you lose a lot of DPS. You can see this is 505 value, and I am leaking here, which is not good. So normally to improve that consistency, you'll just see like a tier 1. Ideally like a ranged tier 1. Oops. God, spelling is hard. Yeah, you just get like a ranged tier 1 to try and improve the consistency of the setup. Obviously, if you have like, if you want to overbuild with this, if you have something like tanky in front, these do a lot of damage, especially the Hellraiser is like a very high DPS unit. So, you know, that helps. And you can see the Hellraiser dies last here, and we have the Spectre like doing some damage, and you just look at the difference. Leak like 6 grapes to 300, 250 HP Hellraiser in mid. It's crazy, right? Anyway, what you'll normally see is another Phantom on 5. You can do Hellraiser or you can do Phantom. I would generally just do another Phantom, because if you have a look at the HP, like damage is not the problem, right? Hellraiser is high damage, dealing 55 to 3 units versus 30 to 3 units, right? The 55 is a really nice increment because it 2-shots the birds, but this 4-shots the birds, right? So this increment is actually like really fucking insane. But the thing is, it's 580 HP versus 475 HP, and they're the same gold. So you're paying a lot of money for like 105 HP. So, because you don't really need the damage too badly. By the way, Hellraiser doesn't quite 2-shot on 5, or 2-shots on 6, I think. But you have like your tier 1 there to help you. So generally you just need the tankiness, or you appreciate the tankiness of the extra Phantom more than you appreciate the damage of the extra Hellraiser. Obviously we had bad focus here, which is just like purely RNG. But it looks like we're holding regardless, even with bad focus. And then let's pretend we just did the exact same thing. But this time we've got the double Hellraiser, and we'll just see how differently it goes. Like, we'll kill creeps a lot faster, but we have about 370 less HP on our line. And like, that 370 HP is a big deal, especially if we don't have good focus. Like, you can see here, the focus was like not great. And because we're so fucking squishy, we leak hard. You really need that HP to increase the consistency, because you just output a lot of damage. Like, Hellraiser and Phantom both do a lot of damage. It's like, yeah, Hellraiser does more, but Phantom is tankier. And because they just both do a lot of damage, you don't need the second Hellraiser. This is how you build. Positioning wise, you're just purely building alongside, hoping for a good damage share. Because with these units you need good damage share because they're so damn squishy and short ranged. This obviously holds 6, by the way. Hellraiser is really, really good on 6. Like, really, really good unit on 6. Because 6 has like crap HP, it's just the fortified armor is what makes it like, gives it like pseudo tankiness essentially, but this is obviously spell damage, ignores the armor type. So it just does really high damage on 6. Yeah, so that is the standard Hellraiser. I rate it above the other units because it is a really good damage option and has some like really nice uses, but it is also playable by itself, like to some success. You don't see it very often because it's low push to start with, and then like it's not a very good YOLO. But the thing is, if you get away with like a decent early game, maybe the game's a little bit fat, you can easily be like 7-7, 7-8, and full clear every level with this unit by just like building a shitload of Hellraisers and then like any small amount of frontline. You just have so much damage versus creeps that is really, really solid. So let's talk about some of the other uses of Hellraiser now. We'll go through them more in like that mixed video that I'll put down eventually. But things like Lord with Hellraiser is really nice. Rather than making me repick, you do like Lord level 1, pretend that's the Lord. Tier 1 level 2. Phantom level 3. This gap is very important. Phantom level 3, that holds 4. And then Hellraiser level 5, and this will hold 5 and 6. You don't actually need it tier 1 as well, but I'm just going to assume you have it because it increases your consistency on 2 and 3. And then this holds 5 and 6. Hellraiser for, not Hellraiser, Hades for 7, something for 8. Like, it's really, really solid. Really, really solid with that. Also usable in the Tox setup. You can, if you have a Magnetor or TOT, you can also just like overbuild with Magnus / TOT and like 3 Hellraisers or some shit. And like, it's not good, but at the same time you can just like hold 7 like that and just be like, yeah, held 7, time to go from like 3-1 to 7-5. So I wouldn't recommend it, but it's an option. But let's talk about the fun setup. So level 1, you got Hellraiser. And you're going to have to bear with me because we're going to be boosting between units a little bit. Level 1, you're going to look like this. With Hellraiser double egg sack. Level 2, you're going to grab another Phantom. Or a Hellraiser. You can do whichever. Probably Hellraiser is just better with 2-0. Don't know why I repicked there. Level 3, you're going to get another Phantom. And then, if you feel like it, you can build a tier 1, but you really don't need it. Yeah, so this is what your setup looks like. Maybe it's better to have like the Hellraiser behind and the Phantom in front. It probably is, to be honest. So maybe you start a little bit differently with the Phantom a bit further back. Hellraiser 2, Phantom 3. Level 4, you're going to need to build again. Going to need to build another egg sack. You can build it here, or you can just start the split already. So how about we just show it, we're starting the split. Just once again note that this is not consistent on level 4 because the Hellraiser has 250 range, the egg sack has 400, so obviously it runs in front. Which is why I kind of like the split egg sack already on level 4. Because that way you'll have 2 egg sacks tanking instead of just 1. And that's what you want. Because this one will generally just be lazy on the range level. But a lot of the time you'll just have egg sacks fighting the last few creeps. But that tends to work. Egg sacks pretty good. So here, now you can actually, if you want, just do something like this. Build one more egg sack for level 5. And your 580 value here, right? And you'll just see how this split works. It's really, really solid. See, we just pull some creeps around to this side. We got a bit unlucky here. We didn't actually pull that many creeps. But Hellraiser has such high DPS here that it's not actually going to matter. This egg sack here protects it on the flank. And you just clear all these creeps so quickly before any of these creeps get to actually move over here and do anything. But remember, this is 580 value, right? Like, with 8 food. Like, this is good push if you choose to play it this way. Right, normally what you'll see here is a second Hellraiser. Because generally, if you're playing it this way, you are going for the free hold on 7. So it's very rare you don't. So with 580 value, you're normally like pretty much finished pushing, right? You're like 6-2. Either way, if you can't afford the Hellraiser, it doesn't matter, you just get like another egg sack. But this, you can do whatever you want for 6, and then we'll just show you the setup for 7. So the setup for 7 is gonna look something like this. And Rummy likes 3 Hellraisers, Moa likes 2. I like 2 a lot more. I think Moa's correct there. So we're going to show you first no send and just show you what it looks like. So this is 910 value, right, which is actually like pretty overbuilt. You can definitely do it with less, but I'll show you the more overbuilt setup because I think it's more interesting. The idea is these Hellraisers get like just very protected in here. You can see this one's starting to tank a tiny bit of damage, but it doesn't matter. And then these exacs on the side protect the creeps flanking around, or protect you from the creeps flanking around. So we're saying like this one isn't even like particularly well placed. You can do this one somewhere else. Anyway, so let's show you now versus send and show you how that setup works. So furb, hermit, manda, troll, kobold. This is like a really fucking big send, right? I'll show a really fucking big send because it's like more interesting, I think. So Furb, Hermit, Commander, Troll, Kobold. See, we did not have much split, but we actually drag all the creeps to this side, which is interesting. Normally that's not how it happens, but it's how it happened this time. You can see our Hellraisers are staying mostly safe. They're starting to take a bit of damage and get killed. This is a bit unlucky, but it's a really big send. You can see we kill most of the creeps, and we're going to be like 6-2 with this setup. But what we might do then is just move this exec, because that's not really doing what I want. And we'll show the exact same send after I reset. And we'll see if we get a little bit better of a split. Hopefully we don't get that random Wagon that I misclicked on. Knowing my luck, we'll have a fucking Wagon now as well. No, good. Alright. See if this looks a lot more normal. Yeah, this looks far more normal now, with less creeps on the split and more creeps with the Hellraisers. So you can see the Hellraisers killing the creeps pretty quickly, everything gets distracted on the eggs, and versus lower sends, what you'll see is the Hellraisers will actually get their way onto the sends. You gotta remember, this is 910 value, fully clearing a send in debug, right? In online, this actually ends up working a lot better, a lot more consistently. But yeah, like if you want to do more, then you just get another egg sack somewhere. You can get it like here, even fucking here is fine. Anything to protect the Hellraisers at that point, but the general idea is you have some creeps going here. Ideally, actually, you have less creeps on the Hellraiser side and more creeps on the non-Hellraiser side, right? So you kill those creeps quickly, and then the sends are often like in the middle or on the Hellraiser side, so you kill those sends really early and then finish off the last sends. That's how that setup works. It then full leaks 8, holds 9. And you can do like however much value you want, right? Like if you want, you can just do like, I don't know, fucking that, right? And just build more exacs, but at some point you just stop. Normally you see something, I think normally you see like 860 value with this exac, like, I think it's like here a lot of the time actually, is a little bit closer. I don't really want to test it again or show you this again, because I think the general idea is there. We can show a smaller send maybe and show it actually being like successful. Let's do Furb, Hermit, Dark Troll, that's a common send. Keeping in mind this is like less value, 860 is probably 7-2, depending how your game has gone, but probably 7-2. So like, this is how the split normally looks. I forgot to actually send everything. Whatever. Anyway, just Furb. Why not? Just Furb. This is how you'll see it. Like, it looks like this a lot of the time versus these lower sends, right? Where just the exacs do a lot of tankiness. You snipe the Sens. If there was a Hermit here, that would be dead already, and we like nothing with 7-2 at 60 value. So, you know, it's pretty good. Once again, online this actually works a lot better. The creep's moving really freely. In debug does this no favors. But yeah, Hellraiser, and it then just transitions like nicely into the mid-game as a damage dealer that can't hit the spell immune sends. So yeah, I would say this unit is like pretty solid. I know I spent a while on it just to show the split build, but something that a lot of people aren't like super confident in. My exact placement is not like perfect either, but in general what you want to remember is this exec and this exec on the same horizontal plane is really important. Then you want one like further back here, how much further, to drag the creeps back down the lane. Then you want like at least something in the sort of middle-ish area. So creeps that split over go exec, 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 right? Then you want enough protection for these Hellraisers on this side, on your Hellraiser side, that they can do enough damage to kill like all the creeps that are on this side before any of them die. They can take a bit of damage and that's fine, but you don't want these ones dying because that's no good. And then yeah, that's like the general theory behind this build. So yeah, I'd say that about sums up Hellraiser. I don't use the unit a lot, but I do actually think it's quite good. It's just a little bit unforgiving and a little bit inconsistent, but overall it's a pretty good unit and it's got a lot of nice mixes with it. So I would recommend playing this unit, not by itself. I would reroll it on free, but I would recommend, like, if you've got other good units and you think you just need like a little bit of damage and you're not worried about being a 10 holder, then like I would really say try this unit out because it's just a very high damage unit. It's worth saying that like meta-wise it's actually slightly worse than it used to be because of behemoths on 13-14. So there are just 2 more levels with spell immune sends that didn't used to exist previously. But as long as you have things that can kill said spell immune sends, then a bunch of Hellraisers just have really high damage output to help you clean through the wave. So yeah, they're a really solid unit. Don't underestimate them. They are a little bit hard to use, a little bit finicky, but they're pretty solid overall. So yeah, that'd be Hellraiser for you, and I'll catch you in the next unit coming up. Alrighty, next up we have a unit. I've put it above Phantom because I think it's pretty good. It's the Tribesman / Alpha Male, but it's a bit weird, right? Because there's no like YOLO for this unit. The reason is because if there's a send on 3, even if you're 2-0, goodbye. It's really fucking bad. In general though, if you're playing it, you'd probably start with Alpha, get a Tribe on level 2, second Alpha level 3, and another Tribesman, right? This would be a setup for 3 if you're playing this with absolutely nothing else, but this unit is so bad on 3. It's not particularly tanky, it 2-shots, its ability is a bit unreliable. Like, it's not bad, it's a good ability, but it's a bit unreliable, so it makes this unit a little bit consistent. Kind of makes me wonder how this unit would do if it just, like, had 30% more attack speed, for example. So pretending you have this, like, buff up, like, half the time, right? Or half the effect of this buff up the whole time. Be interesting to see how this unit did. I don't actually know the answer. Anyway. So yeah, damage share, you just build them alongside each other. They are 900 HP, so even on levels like 7 where they do good damage, they're not super squishy, they don't mind taking a few satyrs. In general, this unit's like fine on 1, not that great, but it's like whatever, it's fine on 1. It's not bad on 2, it's actually pretty solid on 2. Bad on 3, pretty solid on 4, pretty good on, it's like solid on 4, solid on 5, bit meh on 6, solid on 7, reasonable on 8, bad on 9, good on 10. So it's got a lot of good levels, but level 3 makes it really hard. In general, you can't push super well with this unit. But here's how we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this unit right now though. So you can mix this in a YOLO really well, right? Not in a hold, in a YOLO really, really well. So let's just say something, we can do like 2 harlots, and then we're going to do a tech like this. Say something like this for level 5. And if you'll note the positioning, we've got a half space gap in between the 2 harlots and the alpha male. Now I have no idea if this is going to hold, by the way, but in general, this sort of placement is going to work really nicely. You can see that the alpha male runs in front and is going to share damage with the harlots now, which is perfect, right? The harlots aren't sharing very well in amongst themselves, but this 900 HP medium armor is actually really tanky on level 5, so as long as you get that working, like this is a good looking YOLO setup, for example, right? Now it's unrealistic with specifically harlot here, simply because 2 harlots and a tribesman won't hold 4. But we'll show you the difference between no half spot and half spot. So this is no half spot, and it looks like it's going to work really nicely here as well, but you'll see sometimes that the alpha just doesn't really move in front, right? Or the harlots will walk in front of the alpha, or the alpha will stay too far on the wall and won't share anything. So here it's worked beautifully once again, so happy days. But you could see even with that half spot in front, or with the half spot in front rather, it was still the last unit to die, but it just shared really, really well. Shared damage, which is perfect. It's also going to share damage better on level 8 with the setup here. So for this is something I really like, for example, with a zombie. Save me switching between races, but if we pretend these were zombies, we do something like that for level 4 with you do something like that for level 4, and then this for level 5, and that's going to hold level 6 as well in debug. If these are zombies, harlots probably not. Right? Just as an example of a way you can get away with the YOLO that's going to leave you without that painful dead value, right? So this is a nice little tech for the range melee damage share, this half spot. Things like Alpha is good with it, Wagon, any of these like tanky ranged units that you really want to get sharing damage. Besides that, if you're going for more of like a classic holder build with, you know, maybe pretend these harlots like Clockworks, for example, where you need to mix the damage in. You might do something like this on level 7, right? The reasoning for this placement is, once again, 900 HP, get them tanking on the side, right? Don't like stack them on the wall back here so the harlots tank everything before they do. You want to get these sharing with the harlots. You don't want them tanking the Sens, you don't want them tanking, or, you know, pretend these are clocks or whatever, right? You don't want them tanking Blood Orcs or Dark Trolls, or Furbs or any of that shit so much. But if you get them tanking Satyrs or whatever that are wrapping around the side, then that's gonna do work for you, right? Because once again, 900 HP medium armor, they're really not so squishy on these like Magic Pierce siege levels. But obviously they suck on 3 and 9 in particular. So yeah, that's Alpha Male. I actually quite like the unit. It's not playable by itself, but it's good with like a lot of holder setups. You can do like Hades 2 Alpha, things like that, Hydra 2 Alpha, which is also nice because Sea Giant 2 Alphas holds 5, so it gets you a like earlier push that way. Anyway, it's a solid unit. Its weak level is level 3. But it doesn't really offer you like enough to justify YOLOing it by itself, considering that weakness on level 3. But it's a pretty nice unit if you know how to use it well and get it tanking. Use that 900 HP. Make sure it's not still on full HP when your other units are dead, right? Make sure you're using that HP or leveraging that HP, because it really doesn't die quickly or get sniped quickly unless you fuck the placement up like royally. Yeah, that's Alpha Male. Solid unit. Just want to make sure it's sharing a bit of damage on the side in terms of placement. That's your priority, right? And then on level 10 you can start to shear it up on the wall to improve your focus. But yeah, that's Alpha, so cheers. See you in the next one. Alrighty, next unit we've got, Mr. Redrum's favourite, we've got the Sprite. So, Sorry, I'll just put main gun back to 0 so I'm not cheating. Level 1, the standard is going to be 240 value Sprite. You can do less than that, you can do 2 Sprite plus something if you feel like it, but this is pretty standard Holtz Warriors. For level 2, you're going to want to get a Militia, get a Wisp, and then get a 4th Sprite, and you want to make sure they're just sharing damage, probably even built slightly further forwards than this, but for now that's fine. Yeah, get that Wisp, Militia, 4th Sprite, this is really good versus Send on 2. Then level 3, you like decide what to do, right? Assuming no like King Gold or no Furb early, you won't be able to get 480 value, right? But you'll be able to get this, your 5 Sprites, which holds no Send, no worries, and then you can just do a little bit extra, right? Some like tier 1s. You can do maybe something like this, for example, right? Doesn't really matter. Or you can stay to 0 if you feel you need to be stronger on 3. So yeah, Sprite, it's actually relatively tanky early on because of this light armor is quite good on the first 3 levels. And like the magic damage is fine, the increments are pretty good. 360 HP is not bad for 80 gold. Then 15% chance to dodge an attack, which you can roughly translate to 15% extra HP, which is 36 plus 18. So 44, about 54 more HP, right? So you can pretend they've got like 410 HP. Practically, it's not quite the same because of like the early sends. Obviously, Blood Orc having 63 to 69 damage. If a Sprite dodges a hit from a Blood Orc, it's a big deal. The Sprite dodges it compared to dodging a hit from like a level creep, right? But, you know, in general, you can pretend that's like 50 health-ish, right? Cool. So, you get away with this 400 value or however much of an add. This will also hold level 4. And here's, like, the level 5 is where it gets interesting, so the, like, safe way to do it would be Thunderbird Sprite, 635, and then another Sprite for level 6, right? Generally, your Thunderbird, it actually walks forwards a little less than Sprite, so if you wanted to do it like this on level 5, it's actually probably like optimal, but it's going to screw your focus on earlier levels, so I wouldn't do it. But gotta make sure that your Thunderbird, it does lose its dodge, and it does get heavy armor, which is obviously worse on 5, but it's still got 955 HP, right? So it's still tanky enough that you want it sharing. So yeah, this for level 5, and then one more Sprite for level 6 is going to be a safe way to play it. Then if the game is like, if you're pretty good in the game, I reckon you can hit like 1k-ish value for level 8, as in like this, then it's going to be worth it. This will hold 9 as well. If you can't get decent value on level 8, then you might consider just pushing earlier, pushing 7.4, 7.5 earlier, and then being something like this for level 9, where you'll do totally fine and recover that way. Playing it a little bit like the, it's quite similar to the Revenant that I talked about earlier with regards to level 8, level 9. Here you got different options. Obviously this unit appreciates mixes, things that will make it better on 5, 6 and 8 in particular. It likes those. In terms of damage share, you want your Sprite sharing nice and early. You don't build further out than this, because especially with ranged units, if you have a wall side spawn and you have, like if you had a Sprite here and here for example, instead of here and here, and then the spawn is like a little bit more over here, these units are going to be full HP when everything else dies, and that's just like, that's just not okay, you know? That's just silly. So you share them up to the wall a bit more. To focus your damage forwards, and then once these groups die, they'll tank on the side. Once these Sprites die, rather, they'll tank on the side. Pardon me. Cool. So that pretty much covers Sprite. So I'm gonna call it better than Tribesman and all that, because it's good on the first 4 levels. It's a bit on 3, but it's, you know, has a pretty solid early game and is one of the best anti-15 units. Like, this thing is really, really strong on 15. So it is not at all dead value when you're building it. It's also worth noting that, like, Thunderbird is just a good DPS unit, right? It does this 120 to 132 on the main attack, and then shocks 2 nearby enemies for 45 magic damage with every attack, right? So that's essentially saying you've got 210 to like 222 magic damage, right? Per attack. Like, that's a lot of damage. It's a serious amount of damage. And the AoE is like not bad. It is magic damage, not spell damage, which means it suffers the same like reductions or bonuses, as you can see here. But like, this unit is a seriously good damage dealer on the heavy armor and even light armor levels. It's also like not bad on 12, somewhat tanky, and it's a ranged unit, which means it's not bad on 12. So yeah, Thunderbird's really solid. It's finicky early game, and it is definitely possible to just like, if you have a bad game, you can just die with it. But because it's good on 9, you should be able to get a reasonable push anyway. And then if you have a good game, you can just be like really strong going into the mid game. So I'd definitely say give this unit a try. So I was saying some of the best mixes it likes. If we have Polar Bear, we can... Oh yeah, pretend that's Polar Bear, whatever. We do Polar Bear there. And we can do something like that for level 5. And that'll do level 5, right? You can also do it with the Magnetor if you get the Polar earlier. I kind of like just the Polar, right? Or you can, you know, if you do it earlier, you can do like this, for example, with the Polar for 5 and 6. But yeah, in general, like, there's Polar, then there's like Ghoul. You can do it with Ghoul, which is a little bit unnecessary, I think, but I like Ghoul, so you know. But then, yeah, just in general, any unit that's like gonna help you out on 5, 6, and 8, like, feel free to experiment mixing with this unit. Yeah, in terms of placement, early on you just want the sprites to share with each other, because as I said, they've got like 50 more quote-unquote hidden HP in their passive. And just the Thunderbird is tanky enough that you want it to share some damage, right? It is a ranged unit, so you make sure you get some range melee or a different range damage share going on level 8. Careful it doesn't get sniped, because it is a bit vulnerable to that with its short range. If you can get it tanking like 4 or 5 acolytes, especially, or a few more if they're gonna be the acolytes that die first, then really like consider doing that, because it'll help you out a lot. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Thunderbird. It's a good unit, quite like it, but yeah, stick around and I'll catch you in the next tier 3. Alrighty, next up we got the Meat Wagon. You don't see this unit quite so much, I think now. So you used to. It used to be a pretty popular suicide back when that was more meta. Anyway, it's still a good unit, so I'll talk about it here. Level 1, you got like 2 options. You can go 3 Meat Wagon, which will do pretty well versus warriors, and if you're gonna go 3 Meat Wagon, I would say just boost in like a tier 1 or even 2 and just make the whole versus warriors more consistent. But you can go 3 Meat Wagon, or as I personally prefer, 3-0 start, and then you can do something else, right? Like I might do this, for example, on level 1 with a 3-0 start, which is going to be pretty solid. And then you build up more Meat Wagons. In general, you're going to look for 5 Meat Wagons, level 3, so you can do it like that, or like that. Not sure which way is better, I think it's like preference. I kind of like this, because it focuses the damage a little bit more, which is nice with Splash, but obviously it means this one doesn't tank as much, so, you know, pick your poison a little bit. I think either placements are totally fine. I would also go tier 1. I would always go tier 1 with this on our level 3, wherever you feel like placing it. There, all totally legit. Because 350 has a little bit of a chance to free leak level 3, and that can be painful. 350 Wagon holds level 4, really strong level 4. It's worth saying, like, for level 2 you just do whatever, right? 2 Meat Wagons and like 2 tier 1s I think holds level 2. It's like really strong versus no send. Obviously incredibly risky. Generally you end up with 3 Meat Wagons and a couple of tier 1s, or 4 Meat Wagons and like a tier 1, depending on how you started, right? My preference is 3 Meat Wagons, couple of tier 1s, because I like starting this unit 3-0 wherever possible. into 5 meat wagons on 3, 5 meat wagons on 4, then level 5. Obviously the splash doesn't hit level 5, it's really bad as a damage dealer level 5, but 265 HP, fortified armor, right? This thing is tanky on level 5. So you can do things like Wagon Necro, right? Example is super legit. You might have something like this for level 5. Then you get like this on level 6, for example, right? You can, you do need to mix this unit now, because being that full suicide lane is like not so good. So you generally will only play this unit when you have a mix for 5. But because it's pretty tanky, there are a whole lot of options, right? A whole lot of options. You can do things like Revenant, Hellraiser, Alpha Male, Necromancer, as I said. Just thinking, like, I'm sure there are more, like Thunderbird, Sprite meat wagons, totally legit mix. You can do a Time Stealer if you want to YOLO that a bit more and use the meat wagons to give you early push. A lot of good options, right? So, yeah. Then for level 6, these change from a tank to a bit more of a damage dealer. You still want them to share like a little bit, but you don't want them to get fully sniped. So, for example, if you've got a tanky melee unit, Magnetor is a really good example. If you've got a Magnetor, right? Pretend that, you know, Mr. Ghost is a Magnetor, save me flicking between builders, right? If that's your build on level 5, with this being a Magnetor, these being your meat wagons, right? What you might do on level 6 is just put a tier 1 in front. Sorry, coughing a little bit. And what this tier 1 in front is going to do, right? So we can play the... we'll actually build a melee unit to show it a bit better. This is a Magnetor, right? So what the difference is this tier 1's going to run forward. Ranged on melee doesn't really matter. It's going to create more of a gap between these meat wagons and the creeps, right? And then you see your melee unit, Magnetor, whatever, runs further in front of everything else, right? Which means it's going to tank more, which is exactly what you want from your Magnetor on level 6. Or whatever melee unit on level 6, because the meat wagons are decent damage dealers. So now we're going to remove this tier 1. And we're going to show what happens then. So you remove the tier 1. And the creeps come down. And you'll see the difference. Remember, none of these wagons were getting attacked early. Now there are creeps spilling to them. This one's dying really quick, whereas before it was living way longer. See, the creeps are on these wagons way quicker because they can find them way easier because they're closer. And they're closer because your melee unit's closer, right? You can see, big difference with just that one tier 1, yeah? So it's a really important distinction to make. And that'll be in the video that we'll release. So I'm going to spoil it a little bit now and I'll talk about it again because I know a lot of you just skim through these, which is totally fine, I get it, they're long. It's going to be on like different texts you can do with placements, right? And that one's going to be like tier 1 focus change. So you just definitely make sure to watch that one, and I'll keep shouting it out in the normal videos coming up because I think that'll, if you're only going to watch like one of these, that's the best one to watch. Yeah, and then meat wagon on level 8, it's a pretty good tank again. So make sure you get it sharing some damage. So if you got your tier 1 to change the focus onto more of your melee unit on level 6, you might actually want to sell your tier 1 on level 8, so your meat wagons tank a little bit more again, right? And you can adjust that focus with your tier 1 to create the optimal outcome for you. Anyway, that's meat wagon. It's pretty solid. Placement wise, they're tanky. Make sure they're tanking something. Don't get them fully sniped on level 6, where because of their siege damage and fortified armor, they rotate into more of a damage dealing role. Later in the game, these are a decent damage dealer as well, especially on like 17. And they're not even bad on 16, or not bad at sniping behemoths on like 15, or helping to kill behemoths on like 15. So they've become more of a backline DPS unit on 15. Or in the mid game rather. In terms of the upgrade, just stay away from it, it's not very good. Just small meat wagons are going to be better. So yeah, that's meat wagon. Cheers for watching. Catch you in the next tip. Alright, our next unit is going to be the Sentry. So you got two options for the start. You got number 1, they're both 2-0. You got number 1, which is going to be double Sentry, and tier 1, or perhaps tier 2, if it's 40 or 50 gold tier 2, or 40 gold tier 2, you can do that, which is totally fine. The upsides for this, if it's like a corrupted ant or something like that, that's pretty good. It'll do better versus warriors. It also lets you click this button on level 1 and still have the 2 Night Sabers to play the early game out if you get nothing. The other option, which is more common, is just the Night Saber. Either way, it's a 2-0 start. Level 2, Sentry, plus the tier 1 if you don't have it already. Conversely, if you're 2 Sentries, level 2 is Night Saber. You want the tier 1 in front to block the fast send, right? I made a video about this earlier. Don't remember exactly which video. It was a synergy guide, I think. I think it was a synergy guide. Anyway, you want to block the fast send, or the potential fast send, because that thing's fucking scary, because they're generally going to be Furbs and Blood Orcs. Normal damage to hit the medium armor of your big DPS units, it's no good. So this is your level 2. Level 3 will be this, maybe a second tier 1. This will hold 4, this will hold 5, and then you can do something like 2 Sentries, level 6 for example, right? Or it's not the best, or you can just vibe out level 6, maybe you got better things to do. To build, or maybe you're building a little differently. Anyway, so that's a really standard Night Saber. You can go into more of a holder setup as well. I know Moa likes this positioning in the early game, and the point of that like half gap, right, is to share damage with your Night Sabers, right? If you're going for more of a YOLO setup, it's kind of interesting, right? If you're going for more of a YOLO setup, you want them on the wall to focus your damage forwards, right? And get really good output. If you're going for more of a holder setup, you want them more off the wall. You still have it like this, because this is good for early game walk and warclog. But you build them out more, so you have more share damage. So we'll show you that. We'll show you the difference between that right now, I guess. This is going to be just level 7, no send, and we're going to do the Moa positioning versus like the YOLO positioning, right? So you can see this one's tanking, this one walked forwards a little bit, but this one's tanking some as well, and this one would tank if that one didn't walk forwards, right? But we'll just check how we end up, right? We didn't get like the perfect share, but it was pretty solid. And for Night Sabers Raw, we are going to go mid, right? We'll just see how much health for interest's sake. 98 HP. And now we'll check our all on the wall. And we'll see how this does. So you can see we're not going to have nearly as much damage share. This one's going to die. This one actually tanks a little bit early, which is good. But that one, and then the next two, right? You can imagine versus send is going to be worse this way, right? Because the sends are going to kill the Night Sabers much more quickly. So we're still just able to hold. No, not quite. But pretty close. You can see there's not a massive difference. But what the difference is this positioning will focus the damage. So if you skip back and watch between the two, you'll see that the first satyrs to die died a lot more quickly with this placement, right? Because all of the Night Sabers, or most of them, are going to hit similar targets. So this is why this sort of placement is really common with AoE units like Night Saber, EA, right? Aqua, you'd do it if Aqua was more expensive and had the stats to match, right? Because they're so cheap, you can't build like 15 Aquas on the wall. But like Engineer as well, you see this placement has to focus the damage and really get that splash or that AoE hitting the same creeps. So you don't end up leaking like 10 creeps that are low HP. you might like 3 creeps that are full HP, right? That's the idea behind this placement, is you focus your damage more. But because these are relatively tanky, right, 850 HP normal, if you remember when I was talking about the alpha males, you can get them sharing some damage, and that's really helpful as well. On level 7, if you want to go for that like free hold, or like any kind of hold with them, right? Any kind of hold with Night Sabers as your like main carry unit, then you'll want to do that side on positioning to get them sharing the damage. It's worth noting that Saber, with or without the 2-1s on 3, you need the 2-1s if you think that could be a send. Don't need them if there's there's no send. It's a really good springboard into like tier 6 holds, right? So you can do something like Ig, Tok, Ig on 5, Tok on 7, Hydra 5, Sea Giant 5, Hydra 7, Minotaur 5, Bigfoot 7, if you want, right? Shit like that. I wouldn't do it with Warden. But you got options like that, right? Which definitely is an upside of this unit, the fact that it's not bad on 7. It's also quite good on 8, which is helpful. Bad on 9, be careful about that. But yeah, the earlier you decide if you're going to go for the hold or the YOLO, and then position accordingly, is going to be better for you, because like that, the like hold positioning or the like overbuild positioning is going to be worse on like, it'll be like fine on 2, but it'll be worse on 3, worse on 4, worse on 5, worse on 6 as well. But it will be better like by the time you've actually overbuilt, right? If you're staying like really, really low, then that side on positioning will be better earlier, because that damage share works better, or works properly when you have like more value, right? Less value, this is more efficient on the wall to just get the maximum output of your damage. But when you have more like tankiness, using that tankiness is better, right? Because if you only have 2 Night Sabers, then they're going to share damage pretty evenly anyway, right? But if you have 4 Night Sabers, then like one's going to die, 1 or 2 are going to take damage, all in the wall, right? 1 or 2 are going to take damage, then the next 1 or 2 are going to take damage. If you've only got 2, they're both going to take damage, and then they're sharing, and that's fine, right? If you got 4, the 2 at the back are going to be lazy. It's also worth saying that, this placement here is not good, right? Like, you can do it, but it's not very good. Because what'll happen is, I guess I'll just show you on level 7. What will generally happen is this Night Saber will die, and then this Night Saber will tank nothing until the very end, right? Looks like we're going to have better focus this time though. Yeah. Actually worked really, really nicely this time, but you'll see a lot... Pardon me. You'll see a lot of the time that, especially online, that this Night Saber will tank the creeps that come from the wall, and then they'll spill to these two, and it's worth remembering you're generally going to have like a tier 1 or 2 from early, right? The creeps will like hit this Night Saber, the Sens will hit this one, it'll die fairly fast. But a lot of the creeps will already have spilled around to these two. So this one gets sniped, and then these two take damage, and this one's on full HP for a really long time. So you got one fully lazy Night Saber, which is not really what you want to see. Anyway, I think that's about it with this unit. It's like also not bad on 12, 13, 16. So, and I guess 19, 21 as well, so it's got some mid-game application, but it's not the best option there. So, if you got better stuff, build better stuff. If you haven't, and use it. But in general, this is a really good tier 3. You can YOLO with it, you can overbuild with it, you can mix it. You can, it's good on 5, it's bad on 3, that's its worst level, but besides that, it's good. You can push really, really hard with the unit, but kind of needs a weird game dynamic to really shine in terms of its push. Like, because you're 2-0 on level 3, basically always, because it's bad on level 3. Since you're 2-0 on level 3, you don't actually really like a slow level 2, level 3. This unit really likes a slow level 4, level 5, because that's the time when you've got, or getting towards your 7-2 push, right? 7-2 for level 5 is the YOLO for this unit, which is like the upside. The downside is that you're going from 3-0 to 7-2 in 2 levels, right? Like Aqua, Night Saber's better than Aqua because Aqua is 6-2 on level 5, but Night Saber's 7-2. That's not actually how it works though, because Night Saber is 2-0 on level 3, but Aqua's 3-0 start and 4-0 on level 3, right? So Aqua still ends up having more push, even though on that level 5, the Night Saber player has more push, right? So you're not actually out pushing the Aqua, even though that's how it looks. That's just like something to think about in terms of like, if you're playing around a Night Saber lane, or if you're playing Night Saber and you want the game to be good for you, if you're playing 1v1 maybe, right, and you've got Night Saber, thinking about like, okay, when can I push with my unit, so when do I actually want the game to be slow, right? I don't want a slow level 2 because I'm just 2-0 for level 3 anyway, right? So it's not even helpful. But yeah, I'd say that about does it for Night Saber. It is, let me just check real quick. I've rated it as my 4th best tier 3, so it's pretty fucking solid. It's a good unit. Has high upside with those holder setups I talked about. Can really springboard shit like Hydra through the early game where it can struggle otherwise. With that 1-0 start and like dying to worries, it's no fun. Because even though we say like Night Saber is bad level 3, 2 Night Saber, 2 tier 1, you're very rarely going to do worse than leaking the send, so can't complain too much. But yeah, cheers for watching, and on to the next tier 3. Alrighty, next on the list we've got the Malformation. So, 2 ways to start this. You got Risky and Safe. This is Risky with the 3-0. If you go on Risky, you'll go Mouth for 2 and tier 1. Don't do the Risky if you got Parasite, it's no good. So pretend this is like whatever tier 1. Then Mouth, probably like another tier 1, tier 2, level 3, right? You're looking at like 450 to 470 value on level 3, right? Whatever that ends up being with your 3-0 start. More standard, it's gonna be and just safer, and most of the time what you'll see is the 2-0 start, 2 mouths, and 1 to 2 tier 1s or a tier 2, depending what they are. Then you'll get another mouth, maybe another tier 1 or 2 or whatever for level 2. And then you do something more for 3, so you generally end up with like the same sort of setup. Maybe it looks like this with 2-0. Maybe you push the 3-0 during level 2. Maybe you even end up with Abno on level 3, which is okay. Not the biggest fan of the Abno on 3, but you can do it if you want. It's not bad 3, it's solid on 4. Anyway, so most of the time you end up with like something like this, which will hold level 4 as long as it's a tier 2. If it's a tier 1, I'd say go 2 tier 1s if it's ranged. If it's a shitty melee one, I'd probably build a tier 2 again, like an extra tier 2. Like this at the moment, I would want this to be safe holding level 4. Anyway, level 5 you'll get the Abno, so hold 6, generally get a second one for 7, third one for 8 sort of thing. And yeah, so you build them in a straight line, you just get that nice damage share. If you want, you can do like that half spot in front to get this one tanking a little bit more, which is, it's okay. I think it's just not very good on 2 and 3 though, so I'd stay away from it in general. I think it's good on 4 and up though, so it's something you can consider doing. Most of the time I'd just keep it in the raw straight line. Not a lot to say about Mouth. Like, it's a really good unit. Placement's really simple though. It's just like in front to make sure it's tanking early, because obviously it's got the on death and it's got the on death, the bugs from the Abno. In like more of the mid game, you don't want the mouse or the abnos to like fully tank. If you have them, you want them to die before your backline for sure. But you know, if you've got like, if you've got things in front of them that are going to stall, that's good. Because obviously the bugs from the abnormality, there spawns more bugs the longer the unit's been alive, up to a certain cap, and it's got a mana bar down the bottom which gives you an indicator of that. So yeah, you want a decent number of bugs, right? Because the bugs are actually what do a decent amount of damage. Don't know how much damage, no idea, but decent damage for sure. So get them working. The abnos, the bugs are like not bad on level 10 for sure. So you can go for a 10 hold setup with this unit if you want. You're going to want other units that are good on 10 though. You don't want like 6 abnos. Unless you're absolutely desperate. But you know, you can vibe that out in your own game, whether it's correct to do that and what your best options are. But if you know you see Malf with good anti-10 early on, you're pretty happy because like, yeah, sweet, I'll just play a Malf YOLO and then go for the 10 hold. So this unit, weaknesses, it's a little bit dicey on 2 if you've only got like one tier 1 with that risky 3-0 start. Not so good on 2. It can be a little finicky on 4, but most of the time it's pretty okay. Does the fucking cat look like he wanted to jump straight at my microphone? Come here, boy. And then level 9, it's not the best either, so gotta be careful of level 9. Gotta be careful with that, like if you're 7-3 on 8, careful with that 7-4 push or that 7-5 push, right? If you're not such a strong line, you can find yourself lagging a lot on 9, so just be aware of that, especially if you're trying to be a relevant line. If you don't really care and you just want the push, then you know, just take the push and that's all fine. Yeah, placement wise, purely just straight line, damage share. As I said, that half spot in front is good when this is an abno. Before it's an abno, I think it's bad. So I wouldn't sacrifice your early game so much just to get that slightly better look on 5-6. But you know, you can do it if you want. I would not do it personally though. I'm not a big fan of it. Yeah, I rate this unit really highly. It's my 3rd best tier 2. I think it's better than Nightsaber by a little bit, just because it doesn't have that like really slow early push. You got a lot of options with this unit as well. You know, it's better on 10 than the Nightsaber in my opinion. You could argue for or against, but I'd rather have Abno than Nightsaber. And I also think the Abno YOLO is just a bit better overall. It's like a flatter push curve, right? You can push more early. You got more options early. But you don't push quite as hard for, around like level 5, level 8 as the Nightsaber does. But anyway, it's like solid unit. You don't tend to mix it very much. You just use the tier 1 and tier 2 to really make it get it over the line. It really likes ranged tier 1s and tier 2s, by the way, it's worth saying. Ranged tier 1s and tier 2s, you're happy. So like Spectre, Ranger, Infantry is one of the best ones, Acolyte, all of those sorts of units, you're thinking like, fuck yes, got a ranged tier 1 or 2 with me mouth. But if you're saying like Parasite and, I don't know, some shitty tier 2, then it's like, then it's not such a good vibe, right? Then it's not so good. That being said, the shitty tier 2s are a little better than they were for a while. Like, you can mix Mouth with a Crusader on level 2, like upgraded, and it's not so bad. Mouth Privateer is not bad, although in the current meta, like Mouth Privateer is a good YOLO. It makes the Mouth YOLO better, but then you just build Privateers and turn your brain off, and it probably just works better anyway, so there's not like a lot of upside to doing that at the moment. But yeah, you know, it's a really solid unit. Just be sensible with your placement. You know, you want them tanking. You want them like semi-tanking if you've got other tanky things. You can get that range melee damage share going if you're building decent sized range units with it. But besides that, it's like just get them sharing the damage. You don't want them dying one after the other. But yeah, nice mouth for you. Good unit, really, really solid. As I said, 3rd best tier 2 in my opinion. 3rd best tier 3 in my opinion. So yeah, stick around and we'll get to the meaty end of the top 2. Right, next up we got Mr. Turret. So, I know some people absolutely hate this unit. If you're one of those people, then like, make sure you give this a watch, because in my opinion, Turret is the second best tier 3 currently in the meta. I think it's a very strong, very consistent YOLO. It is worse than Elite Archer because it is more finicky than Elite Archer, but you can hold 7 with it, you can hold 10 with it. It's really not so dead value. It's not bad on 12-13. Well, it's good on 12-13. It's not that bad on 14. It's bad on 15. Solid on 16. Decent on 21. Like, this unit's got a lot of upside and gives you a really nice push in the early game. So anyway, your standard is going to be 2 turrets and a tier 1 with 3-0 start. If you've got the 25 gold tier 1 or Parasite, you can, well, if you got the 25 gold tier 1, you can decide to go 3-0 anyway and just risk it like this. 2 turrets raw. You can do that if you want. But it can leak level 1 to no send, so be a little careful with that. The other option is go 2-0 only. And then you might, if you have like a decent tier 2, you can build with that. Or you can build like a couple of tier 1s or whatever. And that can do pretty decently as well, right? Like if you got 2 turrets and an infantry, for example, then you got a pretty solid chance at going mid to warriors. Things like that, right? There's a little bit of talk, at least in FBG recently, with like, oh, just go 270 turret and cover warrior. Don't go 270 turret, it's crap. The unit doesn't have like enough upside to justify starting 1-0. Like the big upside, or a big upside of this unit, is the 3-0 start. And if you take away that big upside, then the unit's really not as good as it used to be. So anyway, just your normal start is going to look like that. Tier 1 at the back. The meta used to be tier 1 at the front. It's now changed to tier 1 at the back. Makes you better on 4. And with the less aggressive, like Furbs and Blood Orcs and shit, Furbs having less movement speed, Blood Orcs spawning later, there's less need for the tier 1 at the front. So this is why it's changed into tier 1 at the back. Anyway, 3rd turret on 2, bank a bit of gold, and 2 more turrets on level 3. This will hold level 4 as well. Well, this will normally hold level 4. You can add a little bit more, another turret or something else if you're feeling a send might be coming, or if you want to start overbuilding. We'll talk about that in a little bit. 1 more turret on level 5. Then in general you just upgrade your front turret on level 6. So if you have a look at turrets, 90 gold for 380 HP, right? 160 more, you get 520 HP, right? So this thing is pretty tanky, right? It's not fully like defensively focused, not like when you compare the Footman to the Guard upgrade, which is like a fully defensive upgrade. You're paying for tankiness. This you're paying for damage as well. But in general, like in front here on level 6, it's not gonna it generally doesn't die. In fact, a lot of the time it's like the last unit to die with this exact placement. So that's your standard for 6. Then you can generally like decide 7-3, 7-4 if you're like 900-ish value, or like your aim is to be 900-ish value on level 8, right? Assuming you're not trying to be like a 10 holder or desperately need to leak on 8 or 9 for whatever reason, right? So if you can do that with 7-4, do it with 7-4. If you're going to be like well under that, then probably just need to stay 7-3. This is not a consistent 7-4 like Archer and Aqua, but you can get it quite regularly as long as your game's been decent. So yeah, just make sure to think about that beforehand, right? And then just you can base that off what your expectation of the King Gold is going to be on level 7. If you think it's going to be fuck all King Gold, then just stay 7-3, push a bit slower, but keep your options open rather than fully dying. So yeah, that's like the yellow setup. The holder setup is going to be the same in the early game, and generally you save level 4, maybe you add an extra turret level 4 if you're scared of Ascend, and then this is where you mix it up. You might do something like Sea Giant Hydra, right? Or Ig Tok. Keep in mind that 5 turrets Ig is generally leaking on 6, but it might be like tier 6 and to upgrade tier 6 on 7. Also might do like Magnetor or Tree of Travel, Tree of Time, for level 7, and then you're going to want like 1200-ish value. Well, depending on the send you're expecting. Like, I would say if you're doing that like Magna TOT setup, I think if you're doing it with like 1k value, it's pretty fucking pointless. Because you're not going to hold a send. I think in general, if you're going to do that, then you want probably at least like 1150 value, and just actually be a decent holder versus any kind of send. But in that case, I'd prioritize the small turrets rather than the big turrets. But yeah, I think that about says it. You want with placement wise, you're getting the walk log going with the turrets, and then like if you're building if you're building like the tanky shit, they go in front. You're not trying to share with the turrets. They're too squishy to really share. Which is why you go for the wall clog, right? Because they're too squishy to really want to share all that much damage, at least like early on in a fight where there's a lot of creeps left. You just get the wall clog going to make sure the creeps don't have that much output, or they only output on a couple of your turrets, and then your turrets are just doing heaps of damage, right? It's another one of these AoE, like AoE ranged units, building like closer to the wall with a wall clog to focus the damage upwards rather than spread your like defense outwards, right? If that makes sense. Yeah, cool. I think that about says it all for turrets. Really, really solid unit. Don't sleep on it. If you get turrets with good ads, it can be turned into like a really nice carry. If you get turrets with jank, then it's just like a totally fair YOLO. So yeah, cheers for watching, and stick around for the last and I reckon best tier 3. Cheers. Alright, last and in fact the opposite of least, we have Mr. Cannon. So level 1, you're going to want to get your scatter shots in, right? This is 250 value, so bang on 2-0, nice and easy. This will do well versus Warriors, so you're super happy there. Now you got like two options. One option, first one I'm going to show you is the safe way, which is going to be a small cannon on 2, and a second Biz cannon on 3, which is going to be 500 value, considering one load and one load. This will hold 4. You can build a little bit for 5, maybe you can build a small cannon for 5, get like a third small cannon for 6, maybe actually probably even better is you do like this on 5, this on 6, then maybe you get like an extra cannon on, you know, on 7, something like that, and that'll hold 8, and like this looks all well and nice. The thing is, this is shit, right? Because it's slow push and low push compared to what this unit can do. It's a safe way to play it, so feel free to do it. But it's not optimal, so that's like the safe way. You can do it if you want, if you've got maybe something like Dark Priest that you want to get out of the early game in a good spot consistently, or if you're like your team's only carry lane with said Dark Priest or like mid game units that you can't really use in the early, then that can be like a reasonable thing to do. But I'll show you the better way, or what I reckon is generally going to be the better way. So level 2, you're going to just push like 4-0, and you're going to get tier 1, a couple spots in front, then like a tier 1 or 2 like here. So you're looking at 280-ish value, right? So you can be like 3-0, 4-0 sort of vibe with that, depending what you have. So you can do it with just one tier 1 and go 4-0. You're like a little bit risky, but it's pretty doable. Then on level 3, you'll generally get like a small cannon, if you don't have like better things to mix, right? There are other options, but assuming you just got like cannons and other things to, and like just whatever tier 1s, 2s that aren't particularly useful or synergetic, then you'll just get another small cannon, probably looking at like 400 value, right? With the 4-0, 3-1 sort of setup. So this for level 3. This will also hold level 4. If you're starting to run out of ammunition, just reload, don't fuck around with it too much. Then level 5, you'll get a second pierce cannon, right? Then level 6, you're obviously going to have to build up. You can get another cannon if you want. You can do it like here or here. Not sure actually what's better. Even here or like here has upside. Maybe you maybe you don't have this tier 1 and the cannon goes here or something, right? But yeah, you build up for level 6, but this 540 value with the early like 4-0 push gives you a really, really good YOLO, right? That's the reason why I think this is the best tier 3. Notwithstanding the fact that it's like really fucking good in the mid and late game with huge balls, and like has applications on pretty much every level with like huge balls being good single target damage and good versus sends, then like magic or pierce shots being good against heavy and light armor levels respectively, acid shots being like okay on 20 and 30, but they're not so good. These are the ones I don't tend to use. But if you think about Night Saber, right? Said like the big upside of Night Saber is how it's 7-2 on level 5, right? And that's really, really good. Cannon is also 7-2 on level 5, right? Like you can do that with Cannon as well. Except you're not 2-0 on level 3 with this setup. You're 4-0. Yeah, you're not so good versus Send then. But at the moment 3 Send isn't like super meta. At least in Lil. And like if you and you have the option to play the safe way if that seems correct, right? You can still play the safe way if that seems correct. But if you get away with that 4-0 or 3-1 on level 3, like you're so fucking strong. Because then you have that 7-2 on level 5, but you're starting that 7-2 from 4-0 or 3-1, not from 2-0. That's a massive difference, right? That's like 40 seconds of just extra lumber time, plus the extra lumber you've already made. It's so fucking good, man. It's so good. This unit is great. It's really, really, really good. So, once again, ranged AoE equals wall clog, focus damage forwards, right? These things are also pretty squishy, 680 HP for how expensive they are. So you don't really want them tanking too much or sharing too much. You just want to get that output going, right? Get the maximum damage output, fuck the damage share, prioritize the wall clog, and the focus damage, right? Because if you build things on the wall, get more focus damage spread forwards, because your cannons will essentially target units in like that area, sort of area, when they're built on the wall. And if you're building them off the wall, then you're targeting units in like that area. If you're building them on the wall, the creeps will target units in that area instead of that area. But you know, these are the price. That's the price you pay, right? But I'd say with these units, more important to get that focus damage rather than the split damage. But yeah, I think that's about all there is to say with Cannon. You can also do the tier 5, tier 6 into up tier 6 for like 7 hold. It just plays identically to Night Saber, and in that case you play it the safe way. Then it's literally just Night Saber. Except I think that Night Saber's a little bit better at doing that than Cannon is. You can still do it with Cannon and it's like totally okay. So worth considering, but in general I think the biggest upside of this unit is as a YOLO because it's good on 8 as well, right? Recovers really nicely on 8 with like 4 pierce cannons. And then it's good on 9 if you load like magic. This one, you can get away with like really low value on level 9. If you pay the however much gold, 30 whatever gold you might pay to reload a few of them with magic, which is very, very, very solid. So yeah, prioritize this unit really heavily. Play it on free. I play this on free for sure. I just think like it's really good even without the best ads. The unit is great, and with good ads it's like massive fucking carry. Because this cannon is super strong in the mid and late game, right? It's one of the better units. The only reason it's so damn good is because it's got 700 range, right? It just gets its damage off, doesn't care if they're at levels, melee or range, has ammo types that are good on different waves, like it's good 21, it's good 24, it's good 28, and it's good on 30. Like I'm pretty sure I just named like 4 of the 6 sends that you'll see in the late game, right? Or 4 of the 6 send levels. So yeah, that's Cannon, super fucking good. Yeah, this is going to bring us to the end of the tier 3 guide, so hope you guys enjoyed it. You know, like, subscribe, all of that if you did, dislike if you didn't, so that'll give me an indication of whether I should bother making the last few, but, you know, I think they're alright. And make sure you prioritize watching the next one that I'm going to release as well, and actually like push up the release date a bit, build some hype. And it's going to be on the placement technology. So if you're just boosting through these guides, like skipping through, having a little watch, that's totally fine, of course. But that next one that's going to come out next week, really give that like a proper look through, because that one's going to be, I think that one will be quality, and that one will just generally help people the most, because it'll be a much more general guide rather than the specific ones we're going through here. Yeah, cheers for watching the Tip 3 guide, appreciate it. And yeah, catch you in the next one.